Why are chin-ups easier than pull-ups? So let me give you a very quick primer of the lats. They're going to be the prime mover in a chin-up and a pull-up. Essentially, the lats originate from multiple sites from the back and then insert into the humerus. And so one of the movements that the lats is responsible for is this internal rotation. Now that we know that, let's see how a pull-up grip and a chin-up grip affects the lats. In a pull-up, your hand's pronated, okay, pronated. And if you look at what that does to the humerus, it internally rotates it, okay? So the top side comes in towards the body. And that means that the lats have actually contracted slightly in order for that movement to happen. So if we're in a pronated position, that means that the lats aren't as lengthened as if they would be if the humerus was starting in an externally rotated position. So how do you start with the lats in an externally rotated position? You're in this supinated movement here, or supinated position, which is the start of a chin-up. So one key difference there is the starting position of the chin-up allows your lats to lengthen more than in a pull-up, which means that you're going to get more range of motion, and more range of motion typically leads to more muscle growth. In a pull-up, so with your hands pronated, your shoulders move more from an abducted position where the shoulder blades are away from the spine into an adducted position where the shoulders come towards the spine. However, in the chin-up, it's a lot more sagittal plane focused, i.e. you're starting with your shoulder in a much more flexed position and they move into more of an extended position. So let's briefly talk about the strength profile of the secondary muscles involved in these movements. In a pull-up, because we are moving from an abducted into an adducted position, that means that the muscles being used for that are going to be the lower traps, rhomboids, obviously the lats as well. But those secondary muscles are more stabilizing muscles as opposed to ones that produce a large amount of force and movement. So that's one thing that makes it harder. Whereas in a chin-up, because we are starting with the palms facing in and you're more in a flexed position, this means that the bicep is fully lengthened and the biceps can produce more force and movement because they are less of a stabilizing muscle. They are more of a muscle that produces movement. And so that's another factor that makes chin-ups a lot easier to perform because you can leverage the biceps more, which helps take some of the pressure off the lats. So in a pull-up, because of the fact that we want to get chest to bar, we have to probably arch the back a little bit more so that we can depress the shoulders all the way down. So we're kind of moving away from a stacked rib cage. Whereas in a chin-up, we can keep that stacked rib cage. And this affects the line of the body from that dead hanging position. Because in a pull-up, as you're having to arch, you're moving slightly out of the line of gravity as your body isn't as perpendicular as it would be in a chin-up. Due to the fact that because in a chin-up, your back is able to stay more straight, you're able to stay more in line with gravity, which makes the movement easier. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go through the grip and the initial dead hang. So start facing slightly away, grab the bar, then rotate in, and then from here you want to rotate the elbows in slightly so that we're in a nice strong position. And then we're going to kick one leg forwards, the other leg forwards, keep that in tension, really tight grip, and you're ready to start your ascent. Now that we've got a strong dead hang position, we need to go through the actual ascent of the movement. I'm going to break this down into two parts. So the first part, once we're in that dead hang, we want to try and drive the shoulder blades down the back. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, shoulder blades are down the back and we're ready to pull. That's going to fully engage the lats. Okay. Once we fully engage the lats, so we've got that first part of the movement out of the way, that's when we start to drive the elbows in to the rib cage. So I've got my active hang and then elbows coming in, and try and get your elbows in as far as possible until your chest touches the bar. And then from here, we go into the descent. Recapping that ascent, tight grip, drive the elbows in towards the rib cage. Once we're here, it's all about a nice controlled descent. So go down, keep tension throughout the whole body until we're back in a dead hang before we do the active hang and then drive the elbows back into the rib cage again. And you repeat for reps. So we've talked about the differences between the pull-up and the chin-up. The chin up is typically going to be much easier to perform because of the various strength profiles involved and the position of the body. So that means you're actually going to be able to unlock that movement prior to a pull-up, and also you're going to be able to add more load to the body, such as doing weighted chin-ups, which is going to potentially make this movement more advantageous in terms of building muscle, particularly if we're involving the biceps. From a muscle growth perspective, I'd say the chin-ups are better for all the reasons outlined, but from a transferability perspective, particularly in calisthenics, the pull-up is probably going to be better. When it comes to training these movements, I recommend that if you're a beginner especially, train these concurrently, as they're going to have massive crossover between the two, and each movement is going to help perform the other movement better. That being said, I've written a 3-part program that takes you from learning your first chin-ups and pull-ups to adding weight to those movements, and then ultimately making those movements explosive so that you can perform a muscle up. If you want to be the first to hear about that program when it launches, hit the link below. You'll be added to the list and you will get first dibs on the program. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.